This is your weekly tech recap with Jamal Abbott. News and insights about the tech world in plain English. Thank you for listening. 5G first for carriers. This week, AT&T reports that they're seeing real-world speeds of over 1 gigabits per second on its 5G network. Back in December 2018, they announced that the first mobile service for 5G was delivered to 12 different markets. Verizon also officially launched its 5G network in parts of Minneapolis, Minnesota, and Chicago, Illinois, a week ahead of its planned activities. So Verizon customers can access this 5G network if they have a Moto Z3 smartphone with the appropriate adapter. So the phone itself does not officially support 5G, but it can if consumers purchase this adapter. And if you're in this area, you can get to speeds up to 1 gigabits per second. Now, Verizon has already deployed 5G home service in limited markets, and that's in Sacramento, Los Angeles, California, Houston, Texas, and Indianapolis, Indiana. On the other side of the globe, in South Korea, they have claimed that they've gone live today with their first national 5G network. And just to give you a little insight, South Korea is just as big as the state of New York. So thoughts on these first 5G claims. So there's been a lot of activity going on, a lot of talk, and a lot of going back and forth, jockeying for position with the carriers. So we're actually starting to see some proof in the pudding and to actually see some equipment being installed. And for us as consumers, we actually have the opportunity to test this. Now, keep in mind with these networks, they're very limited and the coverage is a little spotty. So there's been a lot of complaints about the users in Chicago or in Minneapolis, them having access to 5G, but they can't go too far with that. The reason, well, the carriers themselves, they want to get this out there just so they can have the bragging rights and so they can make these claims that they're the first in the world to put out 5G service. But it's going to take a little time before this area and then other areas in the United States are fully covered and blanketed with 5G service all around. You may be wondering, well, what's the point? Well, they want to get you and I excited about what's going on with these networks, and they have to put something out there just so they can write these press releases. And there's nothing wrong with that. This is actually an exciting time right now, and there's a lot of media attention. There's a lot of consumer attention surrounding this, and it's good for us as consumers, and it's good for the telephone companies because we want everybody who's competing for our dollars to succeed in this area. The other thing to point out about 5G service right now, there's two sets of 5G services that are being deployed. You have the home market service, which AT&T and Verizon have deployed in limited markets. So if you happen to be in some of these small areas, there might be some other caveats to that. So you may have it in one part of the city, but not in the other. And that all depends on where the equipment is located at and how they're actually delivering that service. But the strategy was to put out the home service first and then move on to the mobile service, which is the 5G service to the smartphones. So just keep that in mind as you hear more about 5G on this podcast. And then understand too, when you're hearing this in the media, there's essentially two sets of 5G services that are being deployed at this time. Lots of excitement. We're going to keep the news coming with this. Just be prepared for a long drawn out battle between the phone companies as they jockey for position to get these 5G networks up and running. And then really, to be honest with you, we probably won't see much coverage deployed not until 2020 or even beyond that. So the first 4G networks were deployed in 2010, and then weren't really established till after about 2011, 2012, and so on and so forth. So it's going to be a marathon race that's being run for 5G. Be patient and just kind of stick around and see what happens. Verizon introduces a call blocking app to stop Robo and spam calls. So officially called the Verizon Call Filter app, this was introduced to stop those annoying calls that you're getting. And this will allow you to detect spam type calls. You can block it, and then you can report that back to Verizon. Two versions of this. There's a free version, which is available to all users as an app download from the App Store, either Apple or Google. And then there's a paid version that gives you some additional features, such as identifying unknown numbers by name, and then having the ability to create a VIP spam list so you can add numbers on there to block that. The caveat about this service is that you'll need a device that will support these additional features. So if you are an iPhone user, you're in luck. You're supported. It's going to be a little bit more work on the Android side of things, as there's a lot more Android devices out there, and then you'll have to check the compatibility list, which can be found on Verizon's website, just to make sure that you're covered and that you can actually use this call blocking app. Thoughts on this one? So I'm actually surprised that the phone companies are moving fast in this area. I thought that there wasn't going to be a whole lot of motivation to get this type of work done. But they're proving me wrong, which is good for all of us because they're actually going to do something about these spam and robocalls. It's been going on for way too much time, and this is good news, and it just goes to show you that we're heading in the right direction with having this problem addressed. So we did talk about this in episode 2, so if you want to check that out, AT&T and Comcast had ran some tests, and they're developing and putting the pieces together to have a product out there to stop the spam and robocalls. T-Mobile partners with Viacom on a content distribution deal. T-Mobile has an upcoming mobile video service coming out later this year and has inked a deal with Viacom. Viacom is a content company that is known for brands such as MTV, Nickelodeon, Comedy Central, and BET. And then consumers on the T-Mobile network will be able to stream or access on-demand content from those sources as a subscriber to the T-Mobile network. Now, this is interesting because this is a move that some of the other major wireless phone companies have been pursuing. So, for instance, AT&T, they purchased Time Warner and they purchased DirecTV, and now they are actually known as a media company. So they can offer you the services to get you connected with the internet, with phone calls, but they also now produce TV shows and movies for you to consume on their network. What the other phone companies have done is to partner with other content producers. So Verizon has stated that they have no plans to make their own content, but they would partner with another content company out there to have these services delivered over their network. And this is just another move that T-Mobile is doing to follow suit and to get on this path of offering content, movies, shows to their consumers. Why is this actually happening? Well, we have to understand that these wireless companies are looking to give you more reasons to stick around with them. So if you can get your favorite shows from them, if you can get free music from them, they're going to want to offer that to you to keep you around and to have you be satisfied with their service. So it's not just going to be phone service alone. It's not going to be just data service alone, but they want to have that type of connection with you. And the way to do that today is to deliver content in the forms of shows and movies that you all enjoy. The other interesting thing about this too is that there was another announcement released by Verizon this week, and they stated that they have actually partnered with Microsoft to give content producers and broadcasters the ability to create shows and to offer content on the Microsoft Azure cloud. And this is in response to consumers wanting more access to online video. So video is huge. It's just going to grow, especially as these 5G networks come online. And the telephone companies, the wireless companies themselves are just responding to market conditions. And by positioning themselves to work with these content producers, they are going to give themselves the best chance to succeed and to stay relevant today, as we're more mobile. We're not sitting at home watching TV like we used to, and we want to get these shows when we want to get them. A smartphone plan for your kids. Introduced by Verizon, they have designed a plan for young kids and then for parents that are giving their kids access to smartphone devices. With this plan, this gives parents greater control of how their kids use their smartphone. They can also keep track of their activities while they're online, and they can also limit how much access they have to the data plan and then who they actually contact from their smartphone device. The plan gives them 5 gigabytes of data, and then they also have unlimited talk and text to 20 parent-defined contacts. So the other great thing about this service that Verizon is touting is the ability to not have to worry about paying for overages. So if the child gets up to that limit where they're getting ready to go over their predefined smartphone data bucket, they have the ability to essentially block them from doing any more damage to their smartphone. So this is something new and unique for parents to have to navigate. So back in my day and age, when I had my first phone, it was definitely not smart. I can make phone calls on it, but I was limited by a set number of minutes that were allocated to my plan. And then also too, the number of texts that was limited too. So I might have had like 100 texts that I could send, and if I went over that, it was a hefty number that I would have to pay. And I wasn't actually paying it. It was actually my mom that was paying that particular plan at the time. But this is interesting, and I actually got a question from Tina about this, who wants to know, are the Just Kids plans and other smartphone plans designed solely for kids a good idea? Or are these services used to kind of lure parents and then internet service companies to a false sense of security? So she wants to know, is this even like a good idea altogether? And I think it all depends on you and your kid. So for instance, I have a 9-year-old son. He has an iPod, so he's not connected to an actual wireless network other than the Wi-Fi network that we have at home. But even with that, I have a challenge with him being on his device all the time. So, I'll have to tell him to get off so he can do his homework. Or I have to sometimes take it away because he may be getting just a little too involved in the activities on his device. And, he's on social media, he's on Snapchat, but I'm on Snapchat too, so I know what he's doing. He talks to his school friends on his iPod. But I can see how this could be a greater challenge if you didn't have that ability to restrict the content that your child is accessing, especially on a mobile network where this person or this child can use this anywhere in any place. I think it's a good start. I can't speak for other parents out there. I know for myself personally, I'm not ready for my son to be on a smartphone plan of his own. I definitely don't want to pay for him to be on a smartphone plan of his own. And I think it's just, for me, it's just a little too early in the game for him to have something like that. I need him to be responsible around the house. I need him to be responsible with his homework. I don't want him to have to worry about being responsible for his smartphone plan. And I know he's more than capable of doing that, but not ready yet. He's just in the fourth grade, and I will come to this point at a later date. This may work for some parents who may have maybe some older kids, maybe 10, 11, or 12 years old, and they want to have just a little bit more control over what they're doing. Then this is a perfect solution for them. But I would say, you try it and then you see what works for you. And if it doesn't work out, you can always take it away, take the device away, and you just give them an iPod. The second question, this is coming from the Quora community. And if you want to ask me a question on Quora, you can go to Quora.com, look up Jamal Abbott, and that's JamalAbbott, and shoot me over a question. I'd be happy to answer it. So this next question comes from Norman, and he wants to know, how do you create a customer-centric culture? So I love this question because I love working with customers. I love having customers. And the way you create a customer-centric culture is to keep them in mind first. So the best way to do that is to understand what your customers are actually wanting. So this requires you as the leader in your organization to get that message out there that, hey, we need to listen to our customers. We need to understand what our customers are saying. And you and everybody else in the organization need to ask your customers to give you that feedback. So what is it that they're complaining about? What's the thing that they want to see improved with the product or service that you're offering? Or just listen to them. I mean, you don't have to force it out of them, but if you're just engaging in conversations, it's just like, hey, what's going on in your world? Is there anything that I can do to make things better as we're, in this business relationship? But you just have to talk to your customers first. So once you get the ball rolling with the conversation, you're going to hear from them, and they're going to tell you what exactly is going on that they need help with, or just something that they want improved in their life. And then once you do that, you take that information and then you start to get your team to rally behind the idea that, if you have no customers, you would not be in business. If it's not for the relationship with your customers, you wouldn't have the opportunity to serve them where they're at. So you focus on the needs of the customer first, and then you start to build your solutions that center around solving the problems, solving the worries of the customer. And then that's how you get into a customer-centric culture. So put the customer first, and then start to deploy systems and solutions that center around the customer's world. And then from there, you'll understand what you need to do to take that relationship with the customer to the next level. So we have another question here, and this is from Amy. Amy wants to know, what should apartment building owners and apartment developers do to prepare for 5G cellular? So this is a great question, and it's actually an interesting question. And I would think about the strategies that you're currently using right now to service the residents in your apartment buildings. So are you currently offering internet service as a package deal with lease agreements? And if you're not doing that, maybe that's something that you consider, and then you keep 5G in mind as one of the solutions that you can use to sweeten the deal for your tenants to take on leases for your apartment building. And then another thing that you could do to prepare for 5G is, really, and this isn't really a 5G thing. This is more of just a connectivity thing for your apartment building, is, start to make it to where you think wireless first for your apartment building. So, do all floors in your apartment building, do they have access to Wi-Fi? Do they have the greatest connectivity for for the apartment building. Are there dead spots in the apartment building that could be, resolved by expanding Wi-Fi to different parts of the building? So there's not like a specific thing that you have to do, at least in my opinion, at this point in time. And I know this is kind of a stretch, only because we don't really have great use cases for 5G right now. But I would just look at, some of the things that your tenants are wanting right now, and then keep that in mind for 5G by giving them greater options for connectivity. And then maybe that might be a Wi-Fi offering which connects them to a 5G signal within your apartment building. This next question comes from Bill, and he wants to know, why don't we have multiple cable providers to choose from, like we have multiple supermarkets when we go shopping? So Bill, the way it used to be back in the day, you would typically have a region like a city or a small town, and they were pretty much dominated by the one phone company or the one cable company. So the wires that went from these telecom offices and then cable company offices went to a residence, and they pretty much owned the wire. They pretty much owned the contents that came from the main office to the wires and then to that person's home. So you're pretty much limited to one cable provider, and that was pretty much it. It would have been too expensive to have more than one cable provider, especially since there wasn't a market for multiple cable providers. Today's a little different with the internet. You can actually have access to not necessarily cable providers, but just going back to what we said earlier, content providers or streaming providers. Today, you can have access to YouTube TV, PlayStation View, Hulu Live, and the list goes on. So you went from having one choice and you were limited by a set of wires that came to a property to where the internet has given the ability for any streaming provider to provide you with TV viewing options. But it's the internet that has opened that door for that supermarket shift that you're referring to. And this is the best thing that has happened for you and for other consumers, because you can actually choose the plan that seems to make sense for you, and then also choose the content that makes sense for you. So more competition, more choices, lower prices, and then it's better for you in the long run, and for me in the long run as well too. So this concludes your weekly tech recap. I thank you so much for hanging out with me here today. And if you have any questions, feel free to shoot them over to me. You can reach me via email. The email is jamal@thephoneguy.com, and that's JAHMAL@THAPHONEGUY.com. So that's thephoneguy.com. Shoot me an email there. You can find me on social media, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, all those places. Hit me up. And if you want to leave a review for this show, leave it. iTunes, Spotify, SoundCloud, wherever you want to leave it at. I definitely appreciate your time and attention here today, and I hope you enjoy the rest of your week. We'll talk to you soon.